Thank you, everyone, for being here for Conversations with Kurt. This event, we'll be discussing the process of abstract submission for the ORS 2024 annual meeting. And you're welcome to ask any questions. You can either post them in chat or raise your hand, and we will get to you as part of the discussion here. So thank you for being here. And joining us from ORS side is, I am Tim Mix. I'm Marketing and Communications Manager at ORS. We have Sharon Smith-Terry, who's CEO, Paige Mooney, who is our new Associate Marketing Specialist, Matt Zuleg, who's Program Manager at ORS, and joining us also is Hani Awad, who is on the ORS Board of Directors. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And we'll turn it over to you, Kurt.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As we're hitting late in the summer here, stormy weather here in central Michigan. I don't know where it is in the rest of the country or the rest of the world. So we're here to talk about the annual meeting and abstract submission. But if there's anything anybody else wants to talk about, that's okay too. Just, put it in the chat or raise your hand and Tim will call on you. Tim has some prearranged questions and then some questions that were submitted as well. And right, we asked both Hani and Matt to join us in their roles in organizing the annual meeting. Because Matt's been running the annual meeting from the ORS staff perspective for Matt as long as I think I've been part of the ORS, and so he has an incredible institutional knowledge about all the processes. So Matt's the person that we all go to when we ever have questions. So happy to start, with a question from the group or Tim, from you.
Can we start off and talk about the annual meeting just generally and what happens there and what can we expect in 2024?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Right, for people who haven't been to the annual meeting before, this is the big event that the ORS puts on. And, if we were to go back to the ORS 10 years ago, the annual meeting was really the only place we gathered. That's changed somewhat over the last decade as sections have started to hold meetings, and as we have taken over the Musculoskeletal workshop that was just earlier this week in Utah. So now we have other gatherings, but the annual meeting still remains the biggest place where all the membership of the ORS joins. The meeting, again, if we were to go back in time, was very much about scientific content and the presentation of new data, through submitted abstracts and then posters and oral presentations. But the annual meeting has, changed a lot and now has a lot more content that is focused on career development, focused on health, mental health, and well-being. So I think the meeting has become much more expansive in what we try to do to serve the members and help the members throughout their career. A strong component of that is early career development and helping early stage investigators progress. So other things about 2024 that are worth mentioning that I think are really important is that this will be our 70th anniversary of the ORS. So the ORS was started as a research group derived from the American Academy of Orthopaedic Surgeons. So it grew out of the AAOS, but the first meeting of what became the ORS was held 70 years ago. I was not at that one, I should say. I was not born yet 70 years ago. But we're going to be doing a lot to sort of celebrate the 70th year. So where there's going to be a trivia component for the meeting. We're going to have an opportunity for members to submit a one minute video of sort of their most fond memory, and those videos will be looped. We'll have an all attendee gala, and that's something that we've not done at the ORS for a while, is have a party where everybody can gather together. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of beyond just the scientific content content, which remains one of the most important reasons why we gather. There's a lot of educational sessions, lots of networking opportunities, and then the other great thing will be in Long Beach, California in the winter. And so those of us who are from northern climates, like the ORS staff who are all in Chicago, and myself in Michigan, Hani in Rochester, New York, we'll be able to escape the snow and the cold and enjoy the beach for a little bit of time too. So a little bit of enjoyment as well. So that's what to look forward to with the meeting. Happy to answer any more specific questions about that, or Tim, if you have anything.
Yeah, we can keep moving along here. If anybody has anything, just please raise your hand or type it in chat and we'll get to you. But about abstracts specifically, Matt, can you please tell us what the process is for submitting an abstract for the meeting?
Well, sure. It really involves just having your research formatted and going to the ORS, I can't say it, website, and you just log in with ORS credentials, and then there are 20 different topics that you have the ability to submit your research under, starting with biomaterials, bone, cartilage, but they're all listed, and you just end up, providing your hypothesis, your results, your methods, and your discussion points, and then your significance of the research in a one-page abstract that you submit. There is a $40 fee for each submission. This just recoups some of the costs for the submission site that we use. And then all of the abstracts based on your category that you select are peer reviewed by ORS members. So if it's under bone, and ORS members that are knowledgeable in bone and any parts, with the bone research, they would be the ones that would review it. 3 reviewers look at your paper. They score it on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being that it's worthy of a podium presentation, and so forth, going down to 5, which unfortunately would be, a rejection for a particular paper. But and then the scoring is, as I said, is done by the reviewers. The abstract is actually blinded. By blinded, it means that there's no information when it's presented that the reviewer sees that reveals who the author, co-authors are, what institution it's coming from. So, it's an unbiased review of the information. And then all the papers, generally there's about 2,200 papers that are submitted each year on average. Fluctuates from year to year depending on maybe where the location is of the meeting. Some locations like California are more attractive than maybe another location that's not as warm in February. So this all happens, and then it just becomes a system, a process where after the papers are all scored, they then go to what are called topic chairs. These are individuals, either one or multiple individuals that are overseeing a particular topic. Again, example would be bone. And they then look at all of the papers, and they look at the scoring of those papers, and they decide these are papers that we will take and we will make for podiums. Those are oral presentations that are given at the particular meeting. They are then scheduled on a particular day, Saturday through Tuesday of the meeting. If paper is not selected for a podium, it would then become a poster. And then the posters are categorized again by their topic category, bone, biomaterials, etc. And they then are placed for either a Saturday, Sunday session, which is called poster session 1, or Monday, Tuesday, which is poster session 2. And these paper or posters then are hung in the exhibit hall / poster hall for all the attendees to view. And then there is a requested time that we ask the presenting author to be present to discuss their research on that poster. And information is provided to them in November. November 8th is a critical date. That is the date that the notices of acceptance go out to those individuals that submit an abstract. And then the question is, well, what is the deadline? The deadline is August 28th, which is a Monday. It's the last Monday in August. That's the deadline. 12 p.m. Pacific time is the deadline of when you need to submit your abstract. And then you patiently have to wait until there's a decision made in November for your paper submitted.
Great, thanks a lot, Matt. Hani, I have a question for you. Are there any helpful hints that you have for submitting an abstract?
Yeah, sure. So obviously I've been a member of the ORS really since the early 2000s, submitted a whole lot of many abstracts, and also been involved in reviewing abstracts over the years and leading the program committee. So I've got a few thoughts on this for sure. I think most of us come back from the ORS quite energized and excited by the many new ideas that we developed as we listened to exciting science. And so I always tell my students to start early, and I think I would tell everybody else who's thinking of submitting an abstract to really begin working on your abstract very, very early. That gives you enough time to obviously meet the deadline, but allows you really to plan and conduct the research properly so that you have a compelling story at the end of the day with proper analysis of the data and enough time to write it. Like everything else we write, there are usually instructions. Matt just went over those. I don't expect people on the call or who will watch this recording later to remember what Matt said, but these are on the website, so read them, follow the specific format. There's a template that you can download. There are word limits or page limits that you have to abide by. And then really the job of the abstract is to give you an opportunity to present your work at the ORS. So to do that, you really need to tell a story, and it has to be compelling and it has to be significant. So in telling the story, there's a particular structure that these abstracts follow with an introduction, there's methods and results and conclusions. But you need to connect these different sections to really tell an exciting story for the reviewers that can be that can lead to their appreciation and for them to score you high enough to get an opportunity to present on the podium. A big part of this is emphasizing, so what, right? What is the significance of this work? What potential impact does this research have on advancing the science and the field of orthopedic and musculoskeletal science? Clarity of the writing is really important. Reviewers are having to go through tens of abstracts, and they're very busy people, and they want to do this as efficiently as possible. So abstracts that are poorly written represent a challenge for these people, and that could reflect in the scoring. Clarity is also important because people will obviously read these abstract eventually, and if the abstract is written clearly and there's exciting content, people will make sure they go and attend that talk in the meeting, the annual meeting. Yeah, so all of these are important aspects of the preparation of the abstract submission. With clarity also, there is robustness, right? So you have to make sure that the abstract is written well, there's no typos or grammar problems. So proofreading is important, having other people look at it is important. Not just for the proofreading, but also for scientific feedback, perhaps. And maybe the last thing I will say here is something that is unavoidable to discuss, which is, in general, as scientists, we have a code of ethics and honor. We try to avoid plagiarism, and the tools that are available now, including ChatGPT, for example, and some of these large language models, can provide people with shortcuts in terms of writing. We've been writing these abstracts for decades, and we're doing fine. I think you just have to trust the process, trust your abilities, like you've always been doing, and write in your true voice. That these tools are with us; they're not going to go away. There's probably going to be many discussions in scientific forums about how to maximize their use without jeopardizing the integrity of science. Until we know how to do this, just steer clear. That would be my advice.
Thanks, Hani. Appreciate that. Kurt, have you submitted an abstract before, and what was your experience like?
Sure, but Tim, real quick, it looks like Peter maybe has a question. Maybe before I get to that.
I'm sorry. Just a second here. I did not even see that in.
No, he just raised his hand in the video.
Oh, okay. Peter, you have the floor.
Peter, you're muted.
Right. Okay, so Hani and Matt, the guidelines for submitting the abstracts, they were usually encouraged to, write the introduction with then stating the hypothesis of the study. Is it pretty rigorous requirement that it is hypothesis based? In other words, people who are into design or evaluation of devices, implants, or anything else, drugs, treatments, one might want to have a design goal, or one might want to have a key question or a specific goal of the study. And as long as that's clearly expressed, is that equally acceptable to having a scientific hypothesis?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Not every research is hypothesis driven. There's obviously design research, and there's all kinds of research questions that may be posed in an alternative manner to a hypothesis, and that's acceptable as long as the question is compelling and clearly stated. I think the abstract stands a good chance of being reviewed favorably. That's been my experience. Add to that, obviously, there are other factors about everything else I said with respect to clarity and completeness of the study. Premature work usually doesn't do very well. Statistically unpowered experiments don't do very well. So yeah, it doesn't have to be hypothesis driven. That's
Right.
true for abstracts. It's true probably for grant proposals, although some reviewers might disagree about that sometimes.
So essentially what you're saying, so as long as it's a good story, it's compelling, it's significant, it has impact.
Right.
And
obviously, yeah, there's sufficient meat in the results to make that story compelling. It's not just about the significance of the problem. It's have you addressed the problem, and have you answered the question sufficiently and presented novel data, right? So research that we do is always incremental. Some of us are luckier because they can come up with innovative ideas and discoveries. But having a complete story, a complete study. This abstract is one page, but it's one condensed page. It's not a short paper in the way, for example, other conference abstracts are. There's a substantial amount of information that goes into the ORS abstract.
I wouldn't underrate the abstract. Some journals will accept an ORS paper as a reference because it's online, it's available online, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Right, it was common, it's common, they used to all be published in a large volume, called the Transactions in Orthopedic Research, and
that is true.
So they were I think it was quite common to have them referenced in the past. And I guess I would say, Peter, I think with regards to having to be a design-based versus, kind of hypothesis-based study, I think that, one of the strengths of our group is the, the multidisciplinary nature of our membership. And so, we have a lot of people that their background is design, is design oriented in their background, more engineering oriented than biologists, where I think you might find some meetings where something that wasn't hypothesis based might not do as well. But I think at the ORS, I think that, reviewers are very accustomed to things that are, topics that are not hypothesis based, but are more design focused.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Tim, sorry, I interrupted you. You asked a question before.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for jumping in, Peter. And sorry, I didn't see your hand raised there. But I just had a question if you had submitted an abstract before and what the process was like for you.
Sure. Yeah, I've submitted a lot of abstracts. I mean, I submitted my first ORS abstract, I think maybe 24 years ago, 25 years ago. My first meeting was in 99. And so I guess in 98. All right. So I submitted my first abstract 25 years ago. That abstract, I think, or maybe the next year was actually accepted as I was a NIRA semifinalist. And then, right, I've continued to submit abstracts, a few abstracts every year. Now, most of the heavy lifting is done by members of my lab who work diligently to prepare the abstracts. It's Hani did a good job of providing, Matt provided a good technical overview. Hani provided a good sort of overview of what it's looked for there. It's quite a rigorous process of evaluation. And, I've reviewed abstracts for a number of years. It's sort of the beginning of my ORS career. I've not done it in the recent past, but the process is quite rigorous, as Matt said, 3 reviewers. It's blinded, which I think is really, pretty great that, it's a blinded process. I've had some abstracts accepted for podium. I've had most abstracts accepted for posters, and I've had a few that have been rejected. So it can be a real hit or miss. Matt and I were talking earlier about the success rates, and probably maybe 15-20%, probably less than 20% of abstracts submitted get accepted for podium presentations, for oral presentations. Another 5 or 10% are rejected because they're too low scoring, and then the remainder, right, most are posters, and all are valuable though, right? I mean, so the posters are a great opportunity to network one-on-one with people that come by the poster. It can be a great opportunity to learn a lot from experts that might come visit the poster. The oral presentations are, generally we are trying to achieve those because you then reach the biggest audience when you're, giving an oral presentation. So yeah, the ORS abstracts, because they have this longer format, including figures, it always has seemed more like a little bit like a mini paper, as Peter described, much more so than abstracts that you might submit to a normal, a typical abstract to a different meeting, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into them. And, in my lab right now, people are already working on preparing theirs for August. So I think it's never too early to start.
No, it really isn't. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Francesco, I see that you're here with us, and I know you had a question in your registration. Would you like to bring that one up?
Yes, thank you very much to everybody. Really, from Italy, it's always very clear, and we are really happy to participate next year and to attend the meeting. My first meeting was combined with AAOS, so I remember that times. Yes, my question is, but I had all the answers, I think, but just more focused on the workshops. So what do you think about workshops? Because I'm going to call some friends from Europe and some from US and just propose a workshop, because I like to translational like research. So I'm focused on clinical aspect. And so I like to work with friends in the different areas. So what do you think about workshops? And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Francesco. Hani, Matt, do you?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll have Matt just describe the process of soliciting the workshops, and then I can chime in about how the program committee reviews them and selects them. Matt?
Yes, those workshops or symposiums, we do a call for workshops and a call for symposiums for the annual meeting, and that's generally done in the March-April timeframe. So usually right after our meeting is finished in February, as we've been doing the last couple of years, then there's a call for workshops, and we solicit ideas for workshops and / symposiums for the upcoming for the meeting in the next year, and then that usually ends, as I said, in April, and then it goes to the program committee to kind of look at and review and select workshops that are submitted on the different topics, or and this year we've gone through and we've done that already. So we have 9 workshops that are going to be or / symposiums that are going to be presented over the 3 different days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We also have a guest nation this year from Switzerland that's presenting a workshop, and then we have a guest clinical society, the North American Spine Society, that's presenting a workshop. So we start with soliciting for workshop symposiums in March, April, and then we select those. We have that information. We're working start notifying, putting that information on the website and communicating that in future newsletters about what workshops are being done and selected. So we had again members from anywhere, and we've had the last couple of years. I think Italy has done a workshop over the last couple of years. So you're welcome to do that, and it's just a matter of just looking at the newsletter and finding that information. It's also on the website when we do a call for, so look for it in March, because that's a good time. People have an idea when they're meeting they're just done with the annual meeting. Oh, wait, this is what I'm going to come up with, and you start brainstorming and identifying individuals, and then it goes to the program committee and it's decided that way.
Right.
There also is an opportunity at another level, which is currently something we call them research interest groups. These are, you might have, let's say, bone quality. I've got something on bone or any particular topic within. You can do a research interest group and then discuss something specific, if it's spine or whatever. That currently is a call for rigs right now, and that goes, I think, till August 4th or whatever. So that is something you can organize, and then we create and give you a platform and a time to have some speakers discuss and work with the attendees on discussion of the topic that you propose. So those are something that currently is being offered. So if you have an idea, that's what I would recommend submitting. It's not a workshop, but it's still a platform for people that are interested in your particular area, and you can get together and brainstorm with people from throughout the world that are attending our meeting.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
I could add, Francisco, that obviously, if you're thinking a workshop, you're probably looking for something in the 2025 annual meeting now that the deadline has passed. I think the rigs have a slightly different objective than a workshop. Rigs probably carry the potential to continue to meet over the years, where workshops may be a one-off. The program committee looks for complete applications in the sense that there is a very specific hypothesis clearly articulated, not hypothesis, but objective of the workshop clearly articulated, and that the speakers have been selected to address a topic that probably hasn't been addressed maybe in the past 5 years or more, right? Or a topic that's very original and innovative that could be of benefit to the audience in the ORS. It's fairly common for people to come in with ideas that are very still in the very early stages of development. I would encourage you to actually do the work very, very early so that your ideas are very developed. Your speakers are identified and have bought into participating and accepted and you know, communication between the speakers eventually makes sure that the delivery of the content of the workshop is optimized and seamless.
Yes, thank you for your suggestion. I think meeting in person for like in programming, like projecting for next year, I think will be very helpful. So thank you.
Hani, are there any particularly hot topics that you've been seeing in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in particular in this new topic that was added to the topic areas of the OS program on crosstalk between different tissues. You know, we all now have always perhaps acknowledged that our tissues don't work separately from each other, and that you know, we should be thinking about problems of the musculoskeletal system as problems of organs rather than independent tissues, right? So I have a particular interest in looking at crosstalk between different tissues or organs in the context of microphysiological systems or organs on a chip. There's been, you know, the field in the musculoskeletal field has been slow developing those, but there's been some really innovative ideas about that. And these are models that could be useful to understand the basic mechanisms of disease, could potentially be alternatives to animal models. And they have, you know, as an engineer who does a lot of biology, they're quite appealing to me because they allow me to mix in, you know, elements of engineering design as well as, you know, biological models and ask some really deep questions. So that's a hot area for me that I like to see more abstracts submitted in. Yeah, there's probably others that I can speak about, but I'll stop here.
Maybe, Hani,
Kurt?
I'd add a few more maybe. You know, I think, and I agree completely. You know, the crosstalk is new. We had a symposium last year on crosstalk with sort of emerging investigators, early stage investigators that I think most everybody thought was one of the better sessions of the entire meeting. And so that sort of drove this desire to have this crosstalk as a topic. And I think that's really important. Right. I think we've all known about crosstalk for many years, but perhaps we've not acknowledged it as much as we should. I think that sort of related to crosstalk is the role of the immune system. Again, lots of other perhaps tissue types and disciplines have explored the immune system's role for many years. But I think in orthopedics, we're sort of, it's clearly a very emerging area of exploring the interplay between immune cells and bone, cartilage, ligament, tendon cells, disc cells. And then maybe another one that I think is quite hot, and this has gotten a lot of attention from NIH, from the perspective of funding from NIH, is pain. Right. So, again, I think a place where we maybe not focused enough in our field is on pain. And so that's another area I think that's quite a hot topic, that all of our tissues of choice that we focus on, pain is a significant problem. And it really is what we're trying to address, which is, trying to keep people mobile for as long as possible. And one way to do that is to reduce pain. So those would be two thoughts I have too.
And just a reminder to everybody listening, if you have any questions, now is a great opportunity. You have all the experts here that will help you out with your abstract submission process. So either raise your hand or put them in chat and we'll get to you. Are there any, this is for Kurt or Hani, are there any other benefits to presenting at the annual meeting that we haven't addressed yet?
I mean, I remember my first ORS meeting. I was a PhD student and I was just awestruck because I was meeting all those great scientists. I was reading their papers and I had the chance to actually speak with them. And you know what? They're human like me at that time. It was was quite an experience. It's a great opportunity not only for learning and for presenting your science, but also for networking. It can be a catalyst in somebody deciding to pursue a career in science. It's just one of the most important times in the year for me. I look forward to the ORS. It's the one meeting I go to every year. I try not to miss it. And so there's a lot of benefits to the meeting. You can forge lasting collaborations and friendships. It can actually be an opportunity for you to advance your career as well. Many of us in the meeting might be recruiting for PhD students or postdoctoral fellows or even faculty, right? So it's an important thing to do professionally, and a time of the year that you should protect for the sake of actually attending the meeting. Absolutely.
I think that's great, Hani.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any last questions or comments? If not, I would just like to turn it back over to Matt briefly for the final sale on what the dates are again that we should keep in mind, and any last thoughts on submission.
Yes, I mean, important dates again are that the submission is open, obviously. The deadline is August 28th, which is Monday, and it's midnight Pacific time that the deadline is to submit your abstract. And then the abstracts go through the process of being reviewed, and by reviewers, all our ORS members. Again, it's blinded review. Then they are this information is provided to topic chairs, and decisions are then based on the scoring as to a poster or a podium for your particular abstract, with the notification of the decision being sent out to the presenting authors and then the co-authors on Wednesday, November 8th of this year. And then there also is, as we've been doing the last couple of years, a late breaking submission period. It's very short. It's from October 9th to November 13th. And this is for abstracts that are, you can submit where your data isn't available at the time of the 28th of August deadline. So you have this opportunity to submit what's called a late breaking abstract, and those are blinded reviewed, the same thing. Some are selected, a very small percentage, however, are selected and get a podium, and then the rest fall to a poster for 2 days, either Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, as indicated earlier. So, but there are templates that you follow to, put your information in there and indicate what you need, as Hani expressed earlier about, to submit that one page, and it just goes then through that process. So, again, there's 20 different topics that you could select for your research. So hopefully, you have an area that you can submit under, and questions, just send them my way, and I'll get back to you with answers.
Yeah,
Not on the science part, but on the process of submitting it through the system. I'll let Hani and Kurt answer the science part.
I just want to emphasize that with the late breaking submission category in particular, this is not a way to evade the deadline and allow yourself more time to write. The percentage of abstracts accepted in that late breaking session is much smaller than what you would normally. So the review is much more stringent, and it really has to satisfy some criteria for why it is late breaking. It's not at enough time to meet the August deadline is not acceptable. There's that. Yeah. I would also, I don't know if there's other questions, but a thought just occurred to me about how do I increase the chances of my abstract being selected to a podium presentation as opposed to an abstract? And you might have preference to actually present a poster, and that's fine. You could just check a box and you'll probably be honored in your request. I don't know that I have a recipe for how to make an abstract a candidate for a podium. There's very limited spots. We have what, 55 sessions, Matt? How many sessions do we have?
Well, 65 total sessions. There are 12 that are go to spotlight speakers, which are invited, and then so you really have about 50. What does that leave you? 52 that are available. Roughly, you're looking at 350 papers are presented as podiums.
Right. So 150 are perhaps 2,500 submissions, right? Or acceptance.
2,200 generally about over the last.
So obviously it's a very competitive process. A lot goes into it. It's not just review based on scientific merit and quality. Sometimes placement plays a role. So if your topic doesn't fit well, for example, within a session, and another abstract maybe slightly scored less than you, but still very competitive, but represents a better fit. You might be, might not be able to make it to the podium because that one abstract was a little better fit. So there's multiple factors that go into it. Abstract submission, whether it's going to make it to the podium or the poster, you should really strive to write the best abstract you can write. And even with the poster presentation, you have an opportunity to still present your work in a different format and make the most of it. So I don't know if Kurt has any thoughts on how to increase your chances to make it to the podium. I wish I knew, otherwise I'll be on the podium every year, right?
I do really wish I knew. I mean, I think it's a lot about, I think it's a lot about how exciting and novel something might be. I mean, I think it's the same things that, move publications from, one journal to an upper, a higher tier journal, right? Novelty, innovation, and sometimes I think more if it's a basic question, maybe more mechanistic probing of it, right? So I don't know, though. I have always there have definitely been abstracts I've submitted and over the 25 years, and I thought, oh well, this will be a podium, and it's a poster. And there's others that I've thought wouldn't be podiums that are. So it can be a bit or hit or miss, and maybe in that respect, it's a little bit like getting paper reviews back or getting grant reviews. And I think all you can do is try to be your, Hani said this earlier, right? Be your authentic self, put your best work forward, have other people review it and look at it and give it a critical eye. I mean, if you can have someone outside, from that's not on the abstract, look at it beforehand, it's good. I mean, it's not good if you're waiting until 11:59 on the date of submission to finally to review it and submit it, right? The best thing would be you've really planned well in advance. That being said, I've definitely pushed the submit buttons more than once, at 11:59. So it does obviously happen, but I think the more you prepare, the more you can let other people see what you're presenting, the better. Yeah, Peter.
Is there a rule, and what's the rationale of having submitted the work to other conferences? I mean, for example, there's AAOS, there's ISTA, there's a number of other societies, and then not just submitting to other societies, but also submitting for publication. You know, it could be it's being submitted, it's being reviewed, or even you've had the first review. Of course, if it has been published already, I don't know what the ORS policy on that. But could somebody spell that out, please?
Yeah, I don't know, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I do not know that there's a particular rule about whether or not, for example, if you prepare if you have the work published in peer-reviewed journals, it's probably not
It's not
original enough to be presented, right?
right.
But if you submit your abstract, and in the time between submission and the meeting, you publish the work, I think that's okay. We all strive to make advances with our work, and perhaps we don't want to hold it from publication until after we present it at the ORS. That would be my position. I wouldn't slow down the submission of a paper, but it would. But at the time of submission, it has to be original. And I would say if it's been presented in other meetings,
No,
probably not a good idea to
correct.
to
Yeah,
recycling.
there's
Yeah.
correct. If you submitted it already and you presented it someplace at another meeting, then we ask that question, and it's, then we don't want you to submit it for our meeting, but we do understand that you could be submitting for a publication somewhere and, submitting with the RS because you just don't know what the situation is. That's okay. Sometimes then you get notification of ours in November, and then, you say, okay, I'm going to come, and then you get the acceptance for the publication in January. Since ours was prior, you can present our research unless there's a restriction by that publication that says you can't do it. Then, people call, they notify us and they withdraw their paper from it. So that happens a lot of times. Individuals will notify us and say, I'm just going to withdraw it because, and state their reason. So, but generally, a paper that's been submitted, published, accepted someplace else, unless you're adding more, and it doesn't change, then you won't, or we recommend not to submit it for the ORS. Now, if you presented it at small satellite meetings, which depend upon like if you just presented something at the musculoskeletal meeting, you can submit it still for the ORS meeting, because those will allow that since it's still within the realm of the ORS. If your paper's been, you published something that's been accepted, presented somewhere else at one of the other society meetings, then no, you shouldn't submit to the ORS. Sometimes we've seen it where people say, well, I saw this paper, it was presented somewhere else, so by the reviewers, because they attend those meetings too. and they can see it, and they remember stuff. So then you just
Good point.
So I hope that
it's difficult to define, isn't it? Really, it's some fuzzy boundaries to this area.
Right.
Yeah, it is. There are some fuzzy boundaries, and again, I think it's probably important to use kind of good judgment. Because it was spelled out, right? Smaller local meetings, probably not okay, but if it's been, I'll tell you what my rule of thumb is. I'm a regular attendee and involved in ASBMR. I've never submitted the same work at both of those meetings, right? They've always been very, very discreet. But if I was going to a Gordon conference, you know, I might very well submit something that's, you know, similar to what an ORS abstract is, right? That's not published and, you know, it's only for that sort of local meeting. So that's I think a good rule of thumb. If it's another big international organization, that should be discreet. Don't you think, Connie?
No, I agree. I think in addition to the rules that Matt stipulated by the ORS, it's your reputation as a scientist, right? So if you're known to be recycling your presentations, that's not going to be a good thing to do, professionally speaking.
Does anybody have any last thoughts or questions? If
You know,
not, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to mention, you know, and this, you know, we raised the issue of publications. Another aspect of this stuff is obviously intellectual property. So this is a public disclosure. When you submit the abstract, it gets reviewed by people and eventually becomes available to all members of the society, and you will present it. So if there's any elements of the work that required intellectual property protection and patent filing, you ought to do this before you submit your abstract.
All right, great. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for being here for this. I think we've gotten some great information, good exchange of ideas, and this has been, I think, very, very valuable. And we posting the recording for those members that were not able to attend that might be able to get value from this. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And please reach out if you need anything.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.